Thank you for letting me speak. Dana, Judge, Cultivating. I apologize if I hurt your feelings in the other space. Didn't mean to if I did. Peter, everybody in the room, thank you for having the space. I think this is a
Welcome.
very, very good conversation going on. I'd like to share just a personal insight to what it's like as far as the color issue, the black or the white issue in any of these spaces. I try to keep a very consistent message when I speak to my fellow people in life, and there is no color in a foxhole. I'm old school, like the judge, and I believe that everybody knows right from wrong by the time they get out of third grade. I think in my own experience, I can share with you. There was a time in my life I was raised in South Florida, and it was very chaotic. I come from a very dysfunctional circumstance. My father was a cocaine cowboy, a lot of money, affluent lifestyle. It propagates an an idea in a young man's mind that he's untouchable. He can do things that aren't going to be uh, that he won't have to pay a price for. I was a cowboy, a wild Indian, whatever you want to call it, but I was wild. I can speak from being in the military and achieving an honorable discharge with a good conduct medal. I achieved that. I went and was emancipated as a minor into the military. And for me to go, my father told me, "You'll never make it," and I did make it. But I also, from that point, I made it into prison. So I understand the inside and what it's like to be a convict, to have made poor choices, to suffer the consequences of my choices, to understand the necessity of justice and that element. I think that the idea and the institution of justice uh, is by far a, a topic that people don't quite understand the value of. It's painful in some circumstances in our life to be on the wrong side of justice, as having to suffer from our accountability for our own choices. That can be problematic and painful at times. The other side of that, as like the judge was pointing out, the duty of a police officer is to provide safety for everyone, including himself. I mean, that's a responsibility that's huge. As far as defunding the police and not having a justice system, I hear a bunch of stuff in spaces about, just the removal of that force of justice and control in our society. People don't understand what happens to society without justice. This Hatfield and McCoy mentality is a natural, human, biological, reactive synapsis. And there has to be some in our society of 8 billion people, there has to be some metric uh, of consistency in our behavior. And this is the traditional norms that we use in democratic liberalism in our society to have our choices and our voice. And when the society says that, look, we want to live peaceful in peaceful neighborhoods, we don't want high levels of crime, I want to just go ahead and go right back into the fact that the parenting model has failed generationally and incrementally over the generations coming to this point. The parenting model has failed, and I think it's incumbent upon everyone in the room, if you're a parent or if you're a child of a broken parent. It's not the parent's fault, but it is certainly our fault as an adult if we don't have some metric of self-awareness and self-discipline and the application of some good qualities that are going to make our lives better and certainly those around us. And I'll end with that, but I appreciate the conversation. I think everyone should take a real good look at themselves and do a rigorous inventory about why you feel the way you feel, and is that just a symptom of some uh, historical pattern in your history of reacting and responding emotionally to certain things? An attitude is thinking the same thing over a long period of time. We develop attitudes, attitudes, and dispositional anger. And as far as somebody that is angry, losing control of their intellectual faculties and rage producing a death of an innocent person, that can't be institutionally viewed as okay. So there is a price to pay, and I've paid my price in for my failures and bad choices in life, and I know what it's like to recover from that. And when we have good guidance, uh, we can overcome some of those hurts, hangups, and habits. And I think that everyone has a degree of denial about themselves in certain aspects, about what areas of our personal lives have become unmanageable. And I think everyone should ask themselves a question, and I'll leave it with this question, is how do you deal with and process pain and disappointment in your personal life? Without anybody having to answer that question, I think it's an important question to answer for ourselves quietly and kind of reflect on that. What do we do when we experience pain and disappointment? Does it activate the emotional state? Does it activate a behavior, or is it reserved to an emotional contemplation? I think it's important for us all to look at ourselves and try to love one another with respect and consideration. Thank you for letting me speak.
That was profound, sir. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Judge.
Charlene, you're up.
I live in South Africa, Judge, and we love you. We would come over there, we would fight for you, Judge, and die for you. You see, the Afrikaner is a very loyal person. And, I've had three family members killed by black people before. And, we have political leaders that think about killing us. If we say something about it, we are known as crybabies. If we see something, that's bad, let me tell you why white people donated to Shilo Hendricks. And if I can speak and not be kicked out, which I think, Judge, you have an open mind. But, the reason is, white people are tired of being told that they're constantly racist. When somebody is told that they are something that are not, or over and over and over again, it makes somebody to become that word. And they are tired of going into public spaces, of dealing with bad behavior, or they are tired of dealing with a certain black individual. They cannot correct them because they might get shot or killed. They are tired of their child, who might go to a black majority school, being bullied or harassed. They are tired of their businesses being burnt, like in the George Floyd riots. They are tired of a criminal known as Carmelo Anthony being celebrated as a hero, like Robin Hood, and saying that the white victim was deserved to die, and we need to lock up his brother. And but yet, if you say the N word, that is not as bad as murdering somebody in the black community. That's what I've noticed. Because why would a group of people raise 550,000 for a murderer and say that's a good thing? But this didn't just happen overnight. It's not like we woke up and said, let's donate to this one because she said the N word. It's pretty much to stick the middle finger into the liberals' mindset. So just like what we did in Donald Trump in 2016, because Donald Trump was considered to be the, an N word, as bad as the N word back in 2016, Judge. You know that. And so when white people are pushed and pushed and pushed, and if you look at the crime statistics, 5,000 white people are murdered by blacks versus 1,000 blacks are murdered by whites, and blacks only number 45 million, whites number 210 million. So you're three times likely. A black person is five times likely less to be killed by a white person, but a white person is five times more likely to be killed by a black, and that's not right. If we do everything by proportion and racial statistics, it should be like 1,000. It should be 1,000 whites are only killed, not 5,000 whites. Whites outnumber the blacks 6-1, but they kill five times or three times more than our population racial makeup, and nobody wants to talk about that because we deserve it. We are racist. There's no negotiation with them. You cannot reason with them, even if you want to. If you want to correct the history with somebody, it's like, why would we want to send our children, and why would we want to live in their neighborhoods, or them live in our neighborhoods, and we're taking a risk in crime? I would be stupid as a mother, be like, yes, let's invite them all in, but let's take a risk.
Can I ask you one
You
question,
I'm saying,
Charlene?
Judge?
Can I ask you just one question? Um, you brought up the numbers. Can you tell me the percentage of white on white crime? What is the percentage of a white person most likely to be killed by another white person?
Well, I think it's about 80%, but still, what I'm saying is the numbers of black on white and white on black.
Right. So if we create if
It's
we
not fair. It's not fair that more
no, no,
black
no. So
people
this
kill
is
white
this is where
people.
I'm going on, because this is the funny thing with numbers, because you can create a narrative with numbers and it could be true. But if you look on the other side of the coin, and this is also true, you are most likely to be killed by the people who you live around. So white people, for the most part, do live around predominantly other white people, and you're killed by a white person than anybody else. The same with someone who is black. Particularly talking about this in this century in 2025. So,
Right.
but if you look at the numbers of, okay, what is the percentage of a black person killing a white person and a white person killing a black person, and you could kind of create a narrative with that.
Right.
But white people, if we're talking about killings, right, murder, um I don't know those exact numbers,
Well,
but
Judge Brown knows how to look at FBI
right,
statistics, and
so do I. Yeah, so do I, and that's why I'm saying that when you look at those statistics, what are you looking at it for to create what narrative? Because you can't just blankly say black people technically kill more white people than we kill them, but you are being killed more by your own. And I can say the same for somebody black.
right. But we're talking about interracial violence right now. We're not talking about white on white,
Why?
black on
Why are we talking about interracial?
because right now this case, all of this has led because of the Carmelo Anthony. If Carmelo Anthony would have been sent to jail, that woman would not have raised $700,000 because I think that was the final teeter-totter straw where the whites had enough. We saw a 17-year-old good-looking white man innocently killed because he had low impulse control behavior. And just because somebody pushes me or touches me, I have no right to slit their throat. That is psychotic and demonic behavior.
But
Psychotic.
what about the white guy, Casey Allison, who stabbed Joe Ramirez 5 times? Isn't he a
What
monster too?
what about
Well,
the white guy that killed what about the black guy that killed 6 white people in Kenosha, Wisconsin for
Yeah,
no
and
good
then what
reason?
about the white guy that went into the church
well,
and
look,
murdered
look,
all
look,
those
look,
black
look.
people? Wait 1 second, Judge, 1 second. I'm making a point here. And what about the black guy who walked into the church in South Carolina and killed all those black people? What about the Twin Towers? What about the white guy who bombed the Oklahoma Federal Building? So we could do a whole bunch of what abouts. But
But we're talking
historically,
about overall
yeah,
statistics, ma'am. We're
overall
talking about
statistics. So
statistics
yes,
and
yes, yes,
data.
yes. So and of course I'm gonna give you the last word. But overall statistics in America shows that black people have been the most attacked group. And you could go for any century, in any century, in any year, in any point in time of the existence of America. So that's why I said when people throw numbers, your numbers could be accurate, but you could take numbers here and numbers there and create your own narrative. So to your point, you want to talk about interracial crime. Okay, let's talk about it. Go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. What happens in the black community, that's between you and your community fellow kinmen, But I just know when something happens interracially and affects, my people group, it makes people scared of you. We are afraid of you. I mean, I'm
Oh,
not trying to sound weak or
Well, I
anything, but
think
we are
you are
terrified.
afraid. There are a lot of white people who are not afraid of black people. They're not, especially white men. They're not.
Then why do we not go to your neighborhoods late at night or
Why
walk
would
down
you?
Conway?
Why would you go to
You
anybody's
mean
neighborhood
why
late
y'all
at
don't
night?
burn crosses on our
Why? But I should
Washington
though. We
March?
used to walk the neighborhood all the time.
Technically, Charlene, you do, because when you want to go and buy some drugs, yeah, I do come in the black
Well, I don't
neighborhoods.
do drugs.
I'm not talking
Most
about
white
you,
people don't
Charlene.
do
I'm talking
drugs.
about white populations, not about you. But so you do come in the black community when you need something, and depending on what that need is. So, but why anybody going to anybody community late at night?
Because maybe we just want to see the stars. I used to walk the neighborhood late at night.
Where are we
I should
going,
have the right to
Charlene?
do that. You
Well,
know,
let's put it. May I be candid, ladies?
you know what I'm
Uh,
talking about, Judge.
I know
You're my
exactly what you're
age.
talking about.
Everybody knows what you're talking about. I know what you're talking
Now
about.
the point is that there are probably more black people afraid of some of their unruly black neighbors than they are of any collection of white people, contrary to what you hear from the woke crowd. Uh, Same race killing is one thing, but the problem we're dealing with right now is some unscrupulous individuals are trying to inflame passion by race baiting. That's the only way around it. The people that are raising the most hell haven't done anything collectively or individually about any residual effects of the problem. It's called xenophobia. Humans uh, don't really respond to the alien or the different too well. So you can't get rid of racism in one sense because it is an expression of human nature. But you can control it, learn to live with it, and accommodate it so it does not get in the way. But what we're talking about right here is basically, let me give you an analogy. Have you ever been to a party or something somewhere and somebody grievously insulted you and you were just dazed, like, what did he just say? And then for the next weeks or months, you regret not having come up with something to say back. A lot of what you're looking at that is subject to being perpetrated by race baiting or inflamed by this is because black people as a collective have a deep shame that they didn't do what they should have done way back when, so they keep having an unconscious fantasy of what they would do now if they were transported back in time, so to speak. And this is a thing that says to anybody who is somewhat detached, get over it, move on, and make things happen so it does not occur again. You do nothing when you keep reliving the shame that's deep down in your soul.
All right, so
Now,
Charlene, you can stay up if you want to. I'm pretty sure maybe somebody want to rebut some of the things you were saying, but I
well,
would definitely.
I understand what she's
But I want to
saying.
give
I
her.
understand what she's
I want to
saying.
give her 30 minutes to land her plane, and then we're gonna go to who was next. Deborah, did you want to land your plane,
30
Charlene,
seconds,
or were
not
you?
30 minutes.
Yeah, 30
30
seconds. I
seconds.
thought you said 30 minutes. My God, I'm going to have
No,
cough drops.
absolutely not.
But, I don't hate black people. I'm not like, well, let's go round them up and, do this. What I'm saying is, you're asking why white people donated to Shiloh. Most white people are pussies. They're cocks. They're losers and, yellow bellies. I'm 68 years old. I don't have to worry about, working. And I'm giving you an honest answer. I'm glad, Miss Dana, that you didn't kick me off the space. And, I could have lied and said, no, I love black people and I worship their boots. But, I gave you the honest answer.
And I appreciate that, and I respect you for giving
Oh,
your
I do
honest
too.
answer. And I don't kick people off because I want everyone to be heard, no matter what your race, color, gender, or even sexuality.
Dana with the data. Dana with the data.